Charlie. How you doing? I just had to ask, obviously, as a former point guard for the Knicks, how do you feel about Frank Ntilikina? Do you feel like he's got the goods?
Well, he's a rookie right now, and so he's getting an opportunity to play, which is good. And so he'll develop over the course of his time. I think he has a work ethic. He's played well over in wherever, I'm not sure where he came from, but he's been on a winning team, and so I think that will transfer well to him playing in the NBA. So I saw him play a couple times, and like I said, he's young, but he does have some talent. And right now, he just has to go with his skill level and continue to get better each year.
What got you involved with working on a biography for Charlie Ward?
So I have, I've written a bunch of books in the past, and one of the recent projects that I worked on a few years ago was starting a website for the College Football Hall of Fame and the National Football Foundation called Football Matters. And through that site, I had kind of gotten in touch with a lot of different College Football Hall of Famers, and one of the projects that had come out of that was trying to do a sort of a series of books on Hall of Famers. My background is, kind of writing in sports. I'd written for Yahoo Sports and done a lot of cover stories for Men's Health and Men's Fitness. So when the opportunity kind of came about to work with these guys, I wanted to work with somebody who I had kind of a personal connection to. And so my first book was with Mean Joe Green, and then this book was with Charlie Ward, who I had first seen play at the Kickoff Classic at the Meadowlands in '93 back in New Jersey as a quarterback for Florida State. And so the idea to kind of come full circle and actually get to work with him in person was awesome.
What was it like working with Charlie? Just like
Charlie
going
was
through
great.
his life.
Yeah, it was awesome because he's we're close enough in age, but he's older than me. Where I remember watching him, and I remember the first time that I'd really kind of took a draw to him a little bit was when it was kind of before actually the football game that I just mentioned, when I was watching some ACC basketball earlier in that year, and I watched him just kind of take it to Duke and take it to UNC, and he was just such a solid leader on the court. And then to see him play football and be kind of the best football player in the country for a year, really kind of almost two, since he was, people don't remember that he was also a Heisman finalist the year before he actually won it, that I kind of had an expectation that he was kind of a versatile guy, and I'd seen him in interviews, but now he was since leaving the Knicks and leaving coaching Houston, he was a high school football coach. And so when I kind of reached out to him about the book, he was interested. And, over the course of writing a book, you start to kind of get to know somebody a little bit. And we talked a ton. I mean, for the course of the real heavy lifting of the research part of the book, we were talking weekly for, an hour and a half at a time. And then we got to know each other really well then. He was really cool, really honest, open-minded guy, forthright with his memories and things like that he was talking about. And then also, his family was fantastic. I went to Thomasville and, got to hang out with his parents, and his mom made dinner and met his sister. I met all these people. Everybody was just so awesome. His wife was awesome. So it was really a treat to kind of get to know him and get to know his family.
I hear that. And the title of the book, The Athlete, Greatness, Grace, and the Unprecedented Life of Charlie Ward. What made you come up with that title?
Yeah, so that title is something occasionally, when you're writing a book, you'll have it before, kind of in your head of what you want it to be. But with Charlie, he had such a varied level of experience. I didn't really have anything in my head to what I wanted to kind of call it. I thought it would just kind of come to me in the process, the 4 or 5 months of writing the book, and it did. Everybody I interviewed, from Jeff Van Gundy to Tony Dungy to Coach Mark Richt to Allen Houston, at some point they would just kind of, when they were kind of praising his abilities or even his skills on the court or on the field or whatever it was, at some point, all the way back to his high school coaches would just say, he was just an athlete. He was just, when you saw him play, whatever the sport, you just looked at him and said, he is just an elite athlete. And so it just kept coming up. I did, I don't know, probably 50, 100 interviews for the book or more. And everybody at some point who saw him play, whether he was 5 years old or 25 years old, would just kind of stumble onto the idea. I know it's a simple thing, he's athletic or whatever, but he's just a pure athlete, and that's why he was able to do all those things. So that's where I got the athlete part of it. And then the other kind of the subtitle kind of came along the same way. He had such an elite, playing point guard at the level he did. I mean, nobody else. He played he won a national championship at Florida State. Mm-hmm. He won a Heisman. But he was also in the Elite Eight as a point guard for his basketball team. He went to, I think, 3 Sweet 16s as a point guard. And he was a point guard in the NBA Finals. And there are people who swear that baseball was his best sport in high school. So that level of greatness kind of came to me of just everybody who talked to him would say he was just great. He was just the greatest player out there. Also a great guy and great leader. So that's how that kind of worked. Grace, he's his faith is very important to him. His beliefs are very important to him. And Grace kind of has double meaning in terms of he was obviously a very graceful, athletic athlete, but Grace really fits the kind of lifestyle and the way he wants to lead. And unprecedented is just no one's done anything close to what he's done. Jeff Van Gundy, I talked to him a few times for the book, and he coupled that at the end of each conversation, he would just say, no, we're never going to see this again. Can you imagine a Heisman Trophy winner having an 11-year NBA career, playing in the NBA Finals? Like, it's never going to happen. And so the title kind of came to me naturally throughout the writing of it.
From just working with Charlie and putting the book together, were you just surprised that he is such a low-key guy, considering the fact that he has all these accolades and Heisman Trophy winner, played all these years in the NBA, but it seems like he lives such a private life? Was that a bit of a surprise when doing your research?
Yeah, definitely a surprise. I guess I knew a little bit of it because when I decided to do the book, he wasn't easy to get a hold of, and not in the sense that he personally was difficult, but he wasn't all over social media. He has a Twitter handle, but he wasn't at beyond going to some Florida State things and popping in on a radio interview somewhere here and there. He's not one of these guys who's just front and center, putting their brand and their name out there all the time. So that kind of tipped me off a little bit that he was cool with being in the background and kind of jumping into Heisman things when they wanted him, or showing up at Florida State games when they wanted him to do that. But he wasn't actively seeking sort of the spotlight. But as I did research, what I realized was he actually does within certain fields. He's very active in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. He's very active with a ton of different charities. He speaks at schools. He speaks at churches. He speaks at a lot of different events. And he's very much a motivational speaker, and he kind of co-hosts a radio show. It's just he does what he does. He's very comfortable with who he is. So I'd say, I was definitely surprised, but I was kind of tipped off that he wasn't the kind of guy who was, me. And then once I really started researching him and interviewing the people around him, even in high school and middle school, the funny thing they always said was he didn't talk. Like he was the greatest player. In 5th grade, he was the best player on the 8th grade basketball team, right? Like when he was a freshman, he was probably the best athlete in the county, and he didn't want any of the spotlight. So he was getting all the press, and he was getting all kind of the hype that would come along with, especially as he got older, even in high school, and showing what he could do. His last 2 years in high school in both basketball and football, and even baseball. But the contradiction was, for the guy who literally, had he been maybe a different character and a different kind of person, who knows how you handle that level of stardom, especially at basketball and football at a major ACC school at 19, 20, 21, 22 years old. But clearly, I think his parents had a ton to do with that, of preparing him for anything. He had a solid foundation of character and leadership and integrity, regardless of what level of stardom he reached. So not surprising that he wasn't, was so low-key, but once I got to know him, it seemed like, okay, now I understand why he is how he is. The things he draws, his enjoyment from are clearly sports, football, and basketball, but also family, being a son, being a father, being a friend, that kind of stuff.